Hello, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Will Aubrey-Jones, and I'm the Senior Director of Portfolio in APAC for Collaborative Solutions. Today, I'm sitting down with one of our fantastic clients to talk about their organisation, their Workday journey, and the impact that implementing Workday has had on their organisation to date. So with that, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Nicole Devine, Chief Operating Officer at Versant. Nicole, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Will, and thanks for having me. It's very exciting to be part of your conference.
No, great. Our absolute pleasure, and yeah, thank you so much for making the time to join us. So, Nicole, with that, I suppose let's talk a little bit about yourself first up. Maybe just a little bit about yourself, your role in the organisation, how long you've been there, that sort of thing.
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, I'm Chief Operating Officer. I'm actually CEO of the group for Versant. Versant has three lines of businesses, one around consulting for technology services, managed services business, and a product business, and I sit across all of those businesses. I started with Versant 2.5 years ago. Day one of lockdown 1.0 in Melbourne was my first day with Versant, so I've navigated through a couple of pretty interesting years with the group. Over my career, I've worked in a variety of roles. So a 25-year career, I started in consulting. So it is my kind of, I've come back to my heritage a little bit, I feel, with Versant. I then worked for a number of years in financial services. And through my work in consulting, I got very much involved in technology and in financial services. I did a lot of work in tech and then really large-scale business transformation programs.
Great, no, thanks, Nicole. That's really good context setting on your background. So, I suppose just digging a little bit more on Versant, just maybe if you could just talk a little bit about the clients you tend to serve, your business model. Just give us a bit more intel on the organisation.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, Versant has the three lines of businesses, but was a startup about 8.5 years ago, and it was really in that tech services consulting arena that we started. And the whole premise behind starting Versant was to be a challenger in that space. Tor Esman, who is our founder and current chairman of the board, really wanted to disrupt that industry, particularly in the enterprise space. So wanted to create a company that delivered real value and real outcomes for customers, and started in the cloud migration arena with AWS, and then has since expanded. We now work in digital, data, security, identity. We have the managed services business, and we have a product business. So in 8.5 years, gone from 5 people to nearly 600 people, every capital city in Australia, office in Singapore, and we also have an office in the US, in Denver.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, pretty impressive and rapid expansion there. So, yeah, great story. And I suppose actually to hone in on that expansion, particularly on the people side of it, what have been the talent priorities? How have you gone about growing out that organisation?
Yeah, look, it's been extra challenging in the last couple of years. So we have grown significantly. So in the last 2 years, we have hired over 300 people. So if you think about how many people are new to our organisation, it's around 50%. So the growth trajectory in the last couple of years, coupled with the real war for talent that we're experiencing, has been one of our top priorities in terms of strategic agendas. Versant has always been known as an engineering organisation with really high quality engineers that tends to attract talent to our business. And that has continued. Having the thought leadership, particularly in that cloud migration space in the early days, was a real attraction for talent. That has become much harder in recent times. And a big focus for us has been around our culture and really codifying and articulating what that is. And then also really reinvigorating our engineering community, because at the end of the day, that is the heart of what we do, and we're a people business. And so attracting talent, retaining talent is really at the core of what we do.
Sure, that's great insight. And we've spoken there a lot about the people challenge. More broadly, you've talked about rapid expansion. What other challenges have you faced in the last couple of years?
Look, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any organisation in the world that hasn't had a challenging couple of years. So navigating through a global pandemic, shifting overnight into remote working. I mean, we're a tech company, so from a technical perspective, we did that fairly seamlessly. Like it was very aligned to how we worked previously. We're always a very flexible work environment. But that whole challenge of the pandemic and remote working, I think, has brought a lot of people challenges that we haven't had to face into before. So we have stayed very close to our people, and we know we have had to deal with parents having to do homeschooling while they're still holding down a job, people living at home on their own and not having that contact with others. And so we've had a real focus around mental health. And I think that has been a challenge for a lot of organizations. You overlay that on the remote working, and how do you change the way you work, particularly when you're in a services industry where you're working with clients. And I mean, you would feel that at Collaborative Solutions as well. You had to completely change the way you went about your work. And then I think on top of that, we're starting to see some of that more kind of latent impact of the learning and development. So the kind of incidental learning that you get by being in an office with somebody, by working beside somebody, by interacting with clients face to face. I think we're seeing some of the impact of not being able to do that as readily as we have done in the past. And so it's a real focus for us right now, is how do we recreate connections for our people, and have a real hyper focus around the mental health of our people, as well as how do we think about the way we work in this new sort of hybrid environment that is really, it's here to stay.
Yeah, completely agree with all of that. And I suppose, let's weave Workday there into the picture. So, for Versant as an organisation, you've set out the challenges you face, bringing Workday into the picture, and for yourselves that was in both the HCM and the finance side. What changes that made to your organisation?
Yeah, look, you think a tech company, a tech startup, we would have had our tech sorted, we would have a great tech environment that we would operate in. The reality is we really made a deliberate decision that we would invest the money that we earned back into our customers, into our clients, into our services that we provided. So pre-Workday, we really didn't have a very robust tech landscape. We had very little integration. We had no HR system, and we had 500 people. We had limited kind of data and insight. So everything we were doing was heavily manual, and therefore we were quite reactive. So our ability to be proactive, timely, providing really great data and insight to the business was really difficult. We also, not having that HR system, and we're a people business, right? So fundamentally our product is our people, and not having that HRIS, I think was really impacting us, particularly as we scaled and we were in multiple cities, multiple countries. So Workday was a really important decision for us around our foundations to enable us to scale more effectively. And it was also a particularly important decision around people. We really need to know our people, we need to know where they are, we need to know their capabilities and skill sets, and how do we best match them to the work that we have coming, and how do we make sure that we're developing and building their careers? Because we talked about war for talent before. That's a really fundamental component, is giving them challenging work, continuing to build their careers, really focusing on the learning and development. And Workday gives us that foundation. On the finance side, timeliness in terms of data and insight is fundamental, and we were really finding that we were taking too long to provide that to the business, and the world had moved on. Sure.
And of course, as a professional services organisation, then that interconnectivity between the two spaces, delivering program work, having that rich data across the two, hopefully is giving those insights that you really need to run the business effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the lack of integration that we had was, really starting to impact us. So the integration between Salesforce and the CRM into the finance system, connected into the people system, and then we've also got the project module. So that integration piece was what really got us excited about the Workday implementation.
And look, I suppose a more of a selfish question for yourself as COO, what difference has it made to you from a day-to-day perspective?
Look, I am already seeing the green shoots of the availability of data, and therefore being able to analyze that quite quickly, do it in a timely manner. But like the biggest thing is creating the transparency and visibility for our leaders in our business as well. So you can't really scale a business effectively if you can't empower your leaders with the information that they need to grow that business and give them the information they need to make the right decisions, make the right judgment calls, make those in a really sort of fast, timely manner. So the visibility and the transparency is a big one for me across the business, and it's really enabling that. The other one is the data and the insights. And then finally, just removing a whole lot of manual work that happens across the organization, and particularly in the finance team. It was really, really hard grind every day. And look, we were very deliberate about implementing an MVP. So we are by no means done. We've got a long way to go, but I can already see how it is making the lives of our people easier, and it is having an impact on the end business and the leaders in the business.
Yeah, great. And look, that point you make around MVP is a very interesting one. You know, we work very closely together on that program. I think, you know, establishing that from the outset and having that realistic expectation of where you're going to land on day one and what that journey and that roadmap is going to look like, and getting you to where you need to be. You know, that joint understanding was really a key in the success for that program. So that's great. I'll just sort of probably pick up on something you touched on a few topics here. You know, the war for talent, and to your point, you know, the volatility hasn't gone away generally. You know, we're looking at inflation challenges there. You know, potentially on the verge of a recession. I suppose how, you know, again, using those insights from Workday and your role in your leadership team, you know, how are you guiding the organisation through these changes that look like they're imminently coming? I think we have to accept that we live in a pretty uncertain world at the moment, and so the ability to be adaptive, the ability to be responsive to changing circumstances is really important. So I mean, the approach that we're taking is we've spent the last 6 months really refreshing our corporate strategy and what does the next 3 to 5 years look like. But the way we have done that is using a strategic framework as opposed to a really prescriptive strategy, which then gives us the foundations for this is the direction we're going in, but we can be adaptive and pivot as we need based on what is occurring out in the world. The other part of it is we have spent the last 6 months really codifying our culture as well. You know, we are in this hybrid working environment ongoing. As I said, 50% of our people are new through COVID. They're lockdowns and not being face to face. So we felt it was really important to codify our culture and really write down who are we, what are we about, and what are we trying to do, so that our people can really buy into that. Because I think in the current environment, culture is really important. And in this remote working environment, how do you maintain that connection between people, which you can see in the war for talent. We've become a little bit transactional through this remote working. And so I think that's why we are seeing a lot more movement between companies, and it's a lot harder to attract people. And what does your employee value proposition look like? And so that's where you're using something like Workday is a important foundation for us, particularly on the people side. So what are we doing around learning and development? How are we bringing that to life in a virtual environment? How are we still making sure that we're being really deliberate about the career development for our people? And without a HRIS, that's really difficult to do. So I think the key in the current environment is flexibility and adaptability and looking after your people. Perfect. Well, I think that's a fantastic summation, and we'll end it there. So Nicole, look, just want to say thank you so much for your time today and sharing those insights and experiences, I guess, more broadly, but also in the context of Workday transformation as well. So yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, Will.